Welcome, everybody. If you could mute, but that was funny music. Actually, I wonder if I can make you Himanshu a co-host.
I think today you'll have to be the host.
Can I not make a co-host? I thought there's a way to do that. Maybe not. Hi.
So I'll have to put myself on mute. I'm babysitting today.
No worries. Let me give people the first 3 or 4 minutes to join because we had a pretty large number of RSVPs. So I'm expecting more people to join still.
Okay. Okay.
Sure. You're saying that a house kind of does what it wants to be. And it may not be at all what a house was.
I think each of our homes has a different personality.
We're going to get started in 1 more minute and then Just actually want to check. All right, so let's get started. So thanks everybody for joining. This is the next meetup in the series of the Freethinker Institute series of conversations, really aiming to increase happiness and decrease harm in the world. That's really our overall goal. We have a bunch of other goals as an organization. I'll put the URL for the online community or really the website in the chat, and there's a link to our online community, which is through Discord. It's a software called Discord, which lets us chat online throughout the week. We have these meetings every Saturday, but you can stay in touch with people throughout the week and have cool intellectually interesting conversations through Discord. So we'd love for people to join to that. Today's discussion is about how to achieve your life's goals in a state of flow. And I guess I didn't actually put a slide in sort of how I came about these ideas, but it was kind of a variety of things. I've read, probably a couple dozen books on time management, goal accomplishment, dozens of other books on leadership and communication and a variety of subjects. All in all, I've read over 750 book summaries of nonfiction books, and a lot of them have been sort of, not a majority. I read about a variety of subjects, but a lot of them kind of culminated in the things that I'm going to talk about today. And I basically tried to build off of what I learned, and I took best practices from what I've learned, some of which I independently invented from the people that I've read. I was doing time blocking in college before I had ever knew what it was called. I just naturally did it. And so some of the stuff I came about on my own independently, and other people have written about as well. And other ones I've kind of built my own ideas on top of ideas that I've read about, and other ones I've learned about in reading about other ideas. So it's kind of an amalgamation of wisdom from practical advice, which is what the Freethinker Institute is about. It's practical advice that will help us live better lives. And so a little bit about my background. I started my philosophical journey at age 12 when I used to ask people what was the meaning of life at dinner parties. Not always the best way to start a conversation, but I was pretty nerdy or geeky, depending on what you want to say, early on, and started my first philosophy club in college at around age 20. I've been a member of Socrates Cafe since 2008. And fell in love with sort of the discussion group format that I used to have in college again, and started getting more actively involved when I got to New York City and Conversations New York, which is the group that started me hosting discussion groups in New York. And I started attending their discussion groups to have philosophical conversations, and then ended up being the host of Socrates Cafe in New York. And these events get advertised to all the Conversations New York groups, as well as Himanshu and Dr. Krishnesh's groups, and have been doing that since about 2010. I've written probably over 75, I haven't counted recently, but over 75 is my guess, unpublished papers on the most challenging philosophical problems. I literally Googled most difficult philosophical problems and started writing on all of those. My goal is really to increase happiness and decrease harm. As I mentioned, that's the goal of the Freethinker Institute as well, which is a nonprofit that I formed in order to sort of bring people together to achieve those goals. So anyone interested in doing those things or that wants to teach, a subject of interest to them, feel free to reach out to me. I'm always open to feedback about everything and suggestions for helping you guys have a better experience at these events, et cetera, et cetera. So thanks, Herb, for going on video. That's great. So these events are recorded, by the way. We just started recording them so that people who can't attend in person will be able to, enjoy them afterwards in case they can't make it in person. So I just wanted to let people know that they are recorded. They're going to go up on our YouTube channel. And so just want people to be aware of that. And so a little bit about the Freethinker Institute. It's a goal is to create a warm, open-minded community that helps people in both personal and professional growth, which in turn will help increase happiness and decrease harm in the world. And we really want to, create an organization that someday will help, and we already have helped dozens of people make enough money that money no longer buys happiness, which is over 75,000 USD a year. And I've used my company to train people in valuable jobs that made them that kind of money. And then we want to create transformational growth for people. That's really a little bit about the Freethinker Institute. And you can learn more on the website that I posted in the group. So that said, let's get to the agenda. If there are questions along the way, feel free to interrupt me. Like I forgot to say that at the beginning, I like to be interrupted. I have no problem with that. Just talk over me. I'm not gonna always be able to check the chat. Although Himanshu, if people write stuff in the chat and did not talk over me, please talk over me for them so that we can get their questions answered. I don't like to make people wait till the end because personally, I don't always remember all the questions at the end when I'm observing someone. So I like to let people, looks like there's a hand up. Yasmin?
Yeah, hi.
Yeah.
I have a quick question. I'm just curious when you're saying, you were saying about how much money make people happy related with 78,000. How did you bring out, like, how did you go into that answer? Like, how did you decide that how much money actually
That's
make
a great
people
question.
happy?
Yeah, great question. I didn't decide that. That was actually a scientific study. If you Google happiness, $75,000 USD a year, they found that in the US, people making $75,000 or more were no happier because they made more money. Whereas people under $75,000 a year, the more money they made, in general, there was a statistically significant increase in happiness by making more money. And so there does seem to be this inflection point, and it's different for different countries. Obviously it's based on purchasing power parity most likely rather than absolute dollar value. But the idea is that once you have a certain amount of money, basically enough money that you're not worried about money, which was always my life's goal, having grown up from a not very well-to-do family. I always wanted to make enough money that I wasn't going to be worried about money. And so, that's really what that $75,000 inflection point is it's where you don't have to worry about, can I afford medical care? Can I afford, to put food on the table? Can I afford to go on a vacation? And so once you have enough money that you can do the things that you want to do, that seems to be the inflection point where money no longer buys happiness.
I'll say one thing about that, Garrett. That study was done around like 10, 12 years ago. And if you account for inflation, that accounts to right now like 95. So you have
Fair enough. Yeah. So definitely inflation would have to be put onto the measure there. I'm not here to say the specific dollar amount. It was just the 75,000 was the study. But yeah, you're right. It should be accounting for inflation. And that's why the goal of the Freethinker Institute is just to help people make enough money that money no longer buys happiness. It's not a dollar amount. It's more the concept that we should help everyone be in a financial situation where they make enough money that money no longer buys happiness, whatever that dollar amount happens to be. Maybe psychology will change and it's going to be $120,000 later. But I also want to maybe mention a little bit of background about why that's actually super realistic in the next 100 years. I'm a long-term thinker, so I think, well past 100 years, but definitely across 100 years. And in the Roman Empire, the average GDP per capita in modern USD dollars was about 500 USD per year. In 1900, it was about 5,000 USD per year. Now it's about 56,000 USD per year. So it would be silly for us to think that it's not going to be $500,000 per person in modern USD dollars in 100 years from now. And at that point, we would have to be completely unethical to not have everybody making enough money that it would be roughly equivalent to $90,000 USD per year. However, with that said, we're not headed in that direction right now. We're headed in a direction where all the wealth that gets created goes to the very upper echelons of society. And so part of my thinking of making that a goal of the Freethinker Institute is to get people to culminate around this idea that we should help everybody make enough money that they're not worried about money. And then no one will mind that there are millionaires and billionaires because they're not worried about money themselves. I think a lot of the frustration with people making huge amounts of money is that there are also lots of people that are impoverished at the same time. If we prevented people from being impoverished at the same time, then socioeconomic disparity will be okay as long as everyone has a certain minimum. So that gets very political. I don't mean to get political, but and in fact, one of the goals of the Freethinker Institute is to be, non-political, but be able to discuss anything and everything politely. I forgot to mention that. That is our one rule. We only have one rule, and that is be polite at all times. And so if someone is not polite, they'll be warned. And if they're not polite again, they'll be removed from the call. That's only happened once since we started these again. And it's actually never happened to my in-person meetups, but it did happen once online. That said, that is our only one rule, is to be polite. And that's just to be respectful to everybody in the call. And that's really the only rule. Any other questions before we get started? All right, so so I'm going to talk about guidelines for creating your life goals. I'm going to talk about some techniques to help you achieve your life goals and be in a state of flow. And there are a bunch of techniques. And one is time blocking. One is how to set SMART goals. I'll talk about what SMART goals are, how to avoid distractions, form good habits, how to be a continuous learner, which I think is a really important thing to achieving your goals and being your best self. And I'll talk about a little bit of an overview of financial goals. We're going to go into that in more detail in a couple of weeks. That's most likely going to be the next talk I give after this one, 2 weeks from now. We'll talk about overcoming procrastination and how to enter a state of flow. So with that said, let's talk about guidelines for goals in life. I would recommend evaluating each goal in life and just making sure that it increases happiness and reduces harm. And that your goals are accomplishing those things, because if they don't, they may not be healthy goals to have, because it is generally good to increase happiness and decrease harm. And so I think that hopefully will sound pretty intuitive to people. Go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, I was wondering how you'd handle this, Garrett. People point out that those who become successful, whether financially or in another way, tend to become more jaded, more arrogant, more looking down on other people. And so is there a trade-off, do you think, about becoming more competent in certain areas and becoming less humane?
So that's a great question, Daniel. I think a lot of that, I have heard that before, and I've read that in some of the books that I've read before. That as people's incomes go up, they tend to be more self-centered, but it's definitely not true for all people. And so what I would argue is part of what we want to teach in the Freethinker Institute is how to be, increasing happiness and decreasing harm, which is not being self-centered. And one of the talks that I'll give is on altruism and how to be an effective altruist. And so I think it's important that we teach both how to be financially successful, as well as how to be doing good in the world. And I will tell you that it's not a necessity that just because someone makes more money, they become less compassionate. And so what we want to teach here is how to make more money and be more compassionate at the same time, because we need more people. And I think that there's actually a really common problem where people feel like just because you're making more money, you are going to be less compassionate. And that's not true. I want to teach people that that's not the right way to think about it, and that compassionate people should be open to seeking wealth, because then they can use that wealth to do more good in the world. And so I try to teach people that it's okay to seek wealth, just don't lose that compassion when you gain the wealth. I think that's an important point, Daniel.
Oh, thanks, Garrett.
So that said, with the strategy for life goals, so this is something that one of the people that I met in networking said that he paid a consultant quite a bit of money to teach him the same thing. So hopefully this will be valuable to all of you as well. And basically, a lot of what I've read in books is that you need to break goals down into smaller goals. I have a specific strategy that I think I made up, but apparently there are other people teaching similar things for a lot of money. But my specific strategy is my own, and I haven't seen it anywhere or heard of anyone doing it exactly anywhere else. That said, basically what you want to do is break your life's goals down into smaller, more achievable goals. And I'll talk about how to do that. And you want to make enough time to work towards your goals. And we'll also teach how to form good habits, as I mentioned. And so I'm going to talk about mastering your calendar and time blocking I mentioned. And then basically what time blocking is in order to achieve your goals, you need to spend time working towards them. And basically to do that, what you do is you block time on your calendar to achieve a specific goal. So you'll say from 10 to 11 p.m., you'll write your response to, or you'll write your strategy for what you're going to do in a specific area. And so you'll dedicate that time on your calendar to that thing to make sure you have time blocked to get it done. That can be a really efficient way to schedule your time throughout the day. Now, you need time for things like checking email, et cetera, et cetera. You can block time for that. But time is an extremely precious resource, so you want to use it wisely. And if you block your time, you'll find that you use your time more wisely. If you don't block your time, time can just slip away from you, and you check Facebook and start scrolling for an hour, and then suddenly an hour has passed and you haven't done anything productive. And so that's the opposite of time blocking. The other thing is you also want to I actually block time, like I have tonight blocked for family events, and so I block time for personal stuff. I block time for work stuff, so you can use it for any type of thing that you want to do. It's just a useful technique. Now let's talk about goal setting. So first we're going to talk about SMART goals, which are how to define goals in a way that makes them very actionable and tangible. And my screen is over here on my other screen, so that's why I'm looking up in the corner, by the way. And then we're going to talk about defining your life goals. So SMART goals are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. And so specific means that it can be broken into clear, small steps that you'll know when you've accomplished it. Measurable means that you can measure progress against the goal. So if you're talking about making money, it's how many dollars a month are you making, or how many dollars a year are you making? It's a measurable, I want to make $75,000 a year. It might be, one of your life goals, or maybe it's now 95,000. So achievable means that it should be achievable within the time frame set. And speaking of which, time bound is that it should have a time frame by which you will achieve it. And it should be relevant to your values and relevant to who you are as a person. 2 weeks ago, we talked about, making deep relationships with other people. Well, actually, it was 4 weeks ago, we talked about creating deep relationships with other people. 2 weeks ago, we talked about sort of the essence of what makes us ourselves, and sort of getting to know other people and filling out this template that I had, which I consider sort of the sort of essence of who someone is. And it includes like what your values are and what your life's goals are, et cetera, and how you want to define yourself. Your goals should be relevant to the things that you want to accomplish and aligned with your personal values and all of the other things in that spreadsheet. So that's basically the essence of SMART goals. So if you set SMART goals, then you'll be set up for success and being able to know whether or not you've achieved them. So you want those goals to be, ambitious enough that you're motivated to work them, to work towards them, but you want them to be realistic enough that you can make tangible progress towards them. And basically, the first thing to do is to set goals for your life. And, generally I recommend 3 to 10 goals. Too many more, you're going to feel a little overwhelmed. And what I do is I recommend what's called force rank prioritization, which is I do all this in a spreadsheet. I use Google Sheets because I like Google Sheets more than spreadsheets. But it's just the same thing. But basically the higher up goals are the more important priority ones. So that way, when you read the paper, you always look at the highest priority ones first. So the first thing is to choose 3 to 10 life goals. And then you'll put those in a spreadsheet with the name, the description, and any comments or notes. You can have URLs to other documents or, notes that you have on that goal. You can blow it out in a little more detail if you want. And basically what you'll do is you'll say, look at, you also create one row below with like black highlight. And that way, when you finish a goal, you can move it below that goal so that you're always focused on the goals that you need to achieve, and the ones that you've accomplished aren't cluttering up your spreadsheet. So that said, you want to force rank prioritize them, as I said. I also recommend prioritizing based on impact and effort. For example, if you want to go on a lot of fancy vacations and you also want to make the 90-something thousand dollars a year, prioritize making the 90-something thousand dollars a year before the fancy vacations, because you need enough money to go on the fancy vacations. And if you're not making enough money to do that, then you need to solve that dependency. And that's what I mean by consider dependencies. You may need to make money before you can achieve some of your other life's goals. That's just one example of a dependency. There can be many others. And then in terms of like highest, I recommend prioritizing the high impact, low effort, meaning the goals that are going to increase happiness and decrease harm the most, and or increase your financial position or your sphere of influence so that you can accomplish the other things you want to accomplish the most first, and then go for, and that are done with the least effort, and then move on to the next set of goals.
Hi, can I just interrupt there?
Please go ahead.
I don't know. Thank you very much for this evening, Garrett. I don't know if you will cover motivation. How do you get motivated for these goals?
So the goals themselves should motivate you. But if we get to the end of the presentation and you haven't felt like there was an answer to what's going to keep you motivated, so really the short answer, I think, is that the goals themselves should be motivational for you. If there are, we're going to also talk about other things like procrastination that get in the way of pursuing the things that you're motivated by. If at the end of this presentation, I haven't addressed your feeling that of like, how am I going to be motivated to accomplish these life's goals, bring it up again at the end. And I'm trying to address it a little bit now, but I also want to say, maybe some of the things I'll teach about will address it, but maybe not. And if they don't, then bring it up again at the end and we'll address it then.
Thank you.
Thank you. So next is going to be breaking your goals down. So this is the interesting part of what the paradigm that I've come up with is. You take we're going to break your life's goals down into smaller goals so that they're small enough that you can time block them. And and so basically what we're going to do is we're going to create another tab on the spreadsheet called decades. And basically this is going to be the goals that you want to achieve in the next decade. And so you're going to take your top life goal, or maybe your top 1 to 3 life goals that you want to accomplish first. And you're going to turn those into, you're going to say, what do I need to accomplish in the next decade in order to achieve, or, I do it by decade of the life, like 20s, 30s, 40s. And so what do you need to accomplish in this decade in order to achieve, be moving in the right direction to achieve those SMART goals that are your lifelong goals? And basically, that's kind of the next step. There's sort of 2 ways to break them down. You could say, what is the next step that I need to do, and just have one step, where you say, like, if my life goal is to make a certain amount of money, then maybe the next step you need to do is get a certain certification to get the job that would make you that money. Or you could do a deep dive where you may have to say, I need 3 certifications, and I'm going to say I need to do certification 1, certification 2, certification 3. in order to achieve that, that job that I want, that's going to make me the money that I want to get. So you can do it either way. Whichever feels more natural to you is fine. Like there's no right or wrong answer there, and you can do both simultaneously. The idea is that you're taking your life goals and you're breaking them down to a smaller section, which is decade level goals. You might guess what's going to come next is you break it down into goals for this year, and then you break it down into goals for the coming months, and then goals for the coming weeks, and then goals from for the coming days. And so basically you've now broken down your life goals into what do you need to do today in order to help work towards achieving your life's goal. And it's not all going to work out perfectly the first time you do it, but you know, you will adjust accordingly, and you'll revisit these, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But this is going to be setting the stage for breaking down your goals. And I think so basically this is basically what we're talking about, reviewing the goals. And what I recommend is reviewing your goals on a regular basis, and you're going to time block reminders on your calendar where your decade goals you're going to review, and your decade and life goals you'll review the night before your birthday, right? Which is, you know, on your birthday you're going to be celebrating, but the night before your birthday, review what your decade long goals are and your life goals are and how you're doing against those. On the second day of each year, you know, entering the new year, like after celebrating the new year on the first, on the second day of each year, look at your year-long goals. On the first day of each month, look forward to what you're going to accomplish during the month. On a night of the week of your choosing, I choose Fridays because I want to make a lot of progress over the weekend. Look at your week's goals. And then every day in the morning when I wake up, I look at my daily goals. And that helps me focus on what do I need to accomplish today to be moving in the right direction towards achieving my life's goals. Now, I time block all of these times so that I get in the habit, and we'll talk about habits in a little bit. I get in the habit of doing the reviews of these goals at these times. So I also recommend when you review a specific goal, you're going to review the higher level goals as well. So that's where, like, if you're reviewing your decade goals, you'll also review the life goals and like how your decade goals tie into your life goals. You want to make sure that you know, the goals that your goals are still, you know, when you review them, you want to make sure that they're aligned with the higher level goals, that they're still relevant to you, meaning aligned with your values, etc. And that basically that you feel like this is the right step to the right next step to take in this time period in order to achieve your lifelong goals or the next higher level goals that you have set out for you. So I talked about time blocking and in the morning, I recommend, you know, planning your day and time blocking what you know, when you're going to work on your daily goals in order to make progress against those. And you want to leverage your free time to make progress against those daily goals. And then I also have what I call planned spontaneity. So this is like blocking time to just do whatever, you know, whatever you feel like. And I call it planned spontaneity and sort of tongue in cheek, but like, if you're doing all this time blocking, it's important to have some time that you can just, you know, relax and have fun. And you can put like watch TV at night if that helps you calm down. I don't watch TV, but like most people like that. So, you know, block time to have some personal time and some relaxation time, and, you know, the time that you need to have a good work / personal development / life goals / you know, life balance. And also I say it's never too late to start working against your life's goals. And so I think that this hopefully will be useful to people regardless of where we are in our lives. Forming good habits. So I recommend you know, adding a goal to your month goals, which says follow time blocking and goal management. So the first habit that you're going to form is basically the habit of following your goals. Daniel, go ahead.
You
have your hand up.
Hey, sorry about that. Yeah, this is a personal question. You don't have to
Okay.
answer it. But I was just curious, you mentioned, hey, what do you think about scheduling in the things you enjoy, the things, for relaxation? Just curious about you. What do you do for those things?
So this actually is one of those things that I do for fun. So philosophy is my hobby, and it's what I do for like relaxing, like writing philosophy before I go to sleep usually. And if I have spare time, which is not very common, I have a startup, as you know, Daniel, and my startup uses pretty much all my free time that I'm not spending with family. And then I spend, probably an hour a day either chatting philosophy or writing philosophy or talking about philosophy with people. And so that is, philosophy is kind of my downtime. And then I do, because of my company is in the food space, like I do food and wine events. I'm starting to do those now that coronavirus, everyone that wants a vaccine is vaccinated. I'm doing more food and wine events. So that's another downtime for me.
Thanks.
Sure. So, so the first habit you're going to form, and basically they've done a lot of studies of habit forming, and it takes 20 something days. I forget the exact number, but it's 20 something days to form a new habit. So what I'm saying is create a monthly goal, which then breaks down to, which basically then carries down onto your daily goals, where every day you'll remind yourself, I'm going to follow my time blocking and goal management, for the first month that you're doing this process. In doing that, you'll form a habit for following all of the, for like reading all your goals and staying in touch with your goals and managing your daily goals and time blocking your time. And if you get in the habit of time blocking and goal management, being responsive to your goal management, you'll get in the habit of doing that. And then you'll create a list of habits that you want to form, like 20 minutes of aerobic exercise a day is a good habit to get into. Studies show that 20 minutes of aerobic exercise a day is what you need to get the health benefits of aerobic exercise. So it's not for everyone. Consult your doctor. And I don't want to give, I have to give all the caveats for stuff like that. But in general, that can be a good habit. But you choose for yourself, what are the habits you want to form to be the best version of yourself? And talk with people close to you. Part of the spreadsheet that I mentioned that we talked about 2 weeks ago was, what habits do we want to form in our lives? And once you think about the habits, what good habits you want to form in your life, try to form one each month. If you haven't formed it at the end of the month, it's okay to put it on for a second month. But do try to form those habits once a month, one per month if you can, and then you'll gradually increase the level of positivity that you get from forming good habits. So I tend to jump ahead in my slides. So form a new habit every month or two. And so cutting out the extras. So if something is not during your day helping you maintain physical or mental health, if it's not helping you maintain financial independence, if it's not helping you achieve your life's goals and maintain positive, healthy relationships, consider cutting it out of your life. Because if it's not doing one of those things, and if anyone has an example of something that is important to them that they would not want to cut out of their lives, that they think doesn't meet one of those things, I'm open to exceptions to this. I'm always open to feedback about everything. But those were the things when I thought about it that I said, these are the things that we should all be focused on. And if we're spending time on stuff that doesn't do these things, maybe we should be spending our time on these things instead of those things. Now, mind you, you have to decide what your life's goals are and what your life's priorities are. But these are ones that I think would resonate with most people. And it is important to cut out, like, we're all like, I will say that there have also been studies done that people fit the time. Like if you give someone 30 days to do something and it'll only take them 15, they'll find a way to make it take 30 days. And so we all fit the amount of stuff that we want to do into the time we have. And so what that means is that if we have extra time during the day, we may spend it on stuff that's not achieving one of these 4 goals just to fill the time in the day so that we're not bored. We'll fill it with other stuff. But what we really have to ask ourselves is, should we refocus our time and effort towards these 4 things? Some of our life's goals, positive, healthy relationships, financial independence, and physical and mental health, rather than the other things that we're spending our time on. So a Stoic journal is a continuous learning process. It's probably the most famous one was from Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, who was a Stoic, and his book is called Meditations. Supposedly it was never meant to be published, but it's supposedly a brilliant piece of work. I haven't read it yet, although I plan to when I have more time than I do now. But it's basically the Stoic journal concept is a daily journal where you look back towards your day and you say, what can I learn from your day? I have my own specific format that I use, which you're welcome to copy and leverage. I look at successes for the day. I look at anything that is a concern that makes me think I need to, put this on tomorrow's goal list because I want to prevent future failures because I'm concerned about this thing that might happen. I look at lessons learned, things that I can learn and grow from. If I lose my temper during the day, at the end of the day, I want to think, well, what caused me to lose my temper? Losing my temper is one of my personal growth opportunities, so that I don't lose my temper as often as I do. And I don't lose it very often, but I lose it more often than I'd like. And so, I'll look at like, why did I lose my temper and how can I, prevent myself from making that mistake in the future? And then appreciation, it's really important. And there have been a lot of things written about appreciation journals to remember the positive things in your life and try to keep a positive outlook. In the same way that relationships with other people should have 5 positives to 1 negative in order to keep healthy relationships, we ourselves need to keep a focus on the positive in our lives to be enthusiastic about the positive things and reminding ourselves of the positive things we have in our lives. And my appreciation journal is usually gushing about my kids, but there are lots of other things to appreciate in life, like natural beauty, et cetera, et cetera. Just try to think of things that happen in your day that you can be appreciative of and be thankful that those things were a part of your day. And also do consider adjusting your daily goals based on concerns and lessons learned, and also your weekly goals. And then when you get to your next review, and even preemptively, like you can always revisit like higher level goals. If a certain concern is that a higher level goal is, needs to be modified or changed, feel free to do that. Another thing that, I need to add into this pitch that I forgot to mention is, and maybe this is coming up later. So I'm just writing notes to myself to remember to put this in. So basically daily goals should be things that are within your control. And so that's another lesson from Stoicism is Stoic wisdom says to separate what's in your control from what's out of your control and focus your time and effort on things that are in your control. Part of what this goal setting technique does is it says, here are my life goals. Achieving those are right now out of my control, but I'm going to break that down to daily goals, which are things that are within my control. And all of your daily goals should be things that you can do that are in your control. Whereas your weekly, monthly, etc. goals don't have to be within your control. What you want to check in your Stoic journal is, and maybe this is going to be the next slide. That's what I tend to do. No. So, all of your, you want to make sure that, your daily goals are, actions taken that are helping you achieve your long-term goals. If they're not, then you want to have, learnings from your daily journal, your Stoic journal, about how to modify your daily goals so that they will better help you achieve the things that are out of your control. Daniel, question.
Garrett, I was wondering, like, when you keep your journal, even when you think about yourself, what role should self-esteem, the way we estimate ourselves, what role should that play in all this?
That's a great question. I have a whole paper on, it's actually a short paper on self-esteem. And just to give the 30,000 foot view, well, let me first say that I think that it's important that we be proud of ourselves for trying our best to do the right thing. And I think it's important that we do try our best to do the right thing. And what the 30,000 foot view of my paper is basically that as long as you are trying your best to do the right thing, and when I say the right thing, I mean increasing happiness and decreasing harm is what I think is the right thing. And if anyone finds an exception to that, let me know, you're the first. But I'm very open to exceptions if someone can come up with one. But basically, if we're trying our best to increase the happiness and decrease the harm of those we can influence, then I would say we're doing good in the world. And as long as we're trying our best to do good in the world, we should feel good about where we are. And I think self-esteem is extremely important, because if you're not feeling good about yourself, then it's hard to be motivated to do anything, and it can lead to, depression and all kinds of other negative sort of repercussions. So I think it is important to try hard to do the right thing. And if you're doing that, you should have good self-esteem. We'll probably have another talk another day about self-esteem and get more into that in detail. But I do think it's important. I think part of what you want to track in the Stoic Journal is that self-esteem level, and is it where you want it to be? And if not, what can you do to try harder to do the right thing so that you can get it to a point where you feel good about where you are? And I do think that it's a very complicated subject, so it's not one that we're going to be able to like fully answer here, which is why I think we should have a whole nother session on it. But I would argue, and I argue this in the paper, is that almost all the ways that people measure self-esteem today are wrong. It's like keeping up with the Joneses, and it's like, how much money do I make? And it's, and that's why I think, to your point earlier, Daniel, about people making a lot of money feeling, starting to lose compassion. People measure their self-worth on making a lot of money. So when they make $1 million, they're like, oh, I'm worth $1 million, and everyone else is worth, $50,000. I'm worth more than them. And that's not really the right way to think about it. The right way to think about it is, am I doing my best to do the right thing in the world for those that I can influence? If I am, I should be proud of where I am. Now, that $1 million a year person, are they doing their best to do good in the world? They have a big influence on the world because they're making $1 million a year. Are they doing their best to use that influence to do good? And that's the question they should ask themselves. If not, they shouldn't feel so great about themselves. If they're just buying themselves Ferraris and they're not actually using that money to do good in the world, they shouldn't feel good about themselves, even though they're making $1 million a year. They may be financially successful, but they're not morally successful.
Just bring up the a related thing that's self-knowledge and how that fits into your framework.
When you say self-knowledge, what do you mean by that?
The pursuit and the actual possession of knowledge as to your attributes and your values and things of this kind.
Yeah, I think that's critical. And that's why we started with that. I don't know if you were at the meetup 2 weeks ago, but okay. So we will eventually post that to the online group. I need someone that can edit videos faster than I can, because I'm terrible at it. Basically, there are two aspects of self-knowledge. There's like who we are at our core, and then there's like pursuit of external knowledge for our own benefit and the benefit of others. And I would argue both of them are important. First, I would focus on understanding who we are ourselves. That's what we were focused on 2 weeks ago. And then second, I would argue that we should focus on, learning about the world that we live in and other people in that world, which is what we were focused on 4 weeks ago, about building deep and meaningful relationships. So I think all of that is extremely important. And that's why I did those sessions before this one, quite frankly, because I think they're actually more important than this one. And they're actually so you're asking the right question, which is, we need to do those things before, in my opinion, we even know what our life goals are. Because if we don't know who we are at our core, how do we even set our life's goals? It's like trying to get, across the country without a map, and GPS, mind you.
Yeah.
So,
I would just comment that I'm interested in the related field of personal science, and personal science helps you accumulate self-knowledge. So if you imagine a more robust kind of personal science that looks into all aspects of yourself, through social and consumer behavior and learning characteristics, in other words, scientifically, and that you have possession of that, and in the coming decades, that you'll be able, that markets will develop around it to support that and advance human development, which will then build all the, do more happiness in the world and less harm and things of this kind.
I agree. And that's part of why the Freethinker Institute is about personal development and professional development, because I think that concept of self-knowledge is directly related to personal and professional development, right? being the best version of ourselves that we can. And that's
Yes.
really what this whole community is about, is helping all of us help each other. I want you guys to help me too. And I want to help you be the best version of ourselves that we can. And that's why I want us to stay in touch in the Discord community on a regular basis throughout the week, because we can talk with each other and we can get to know each other better that way. And we can help each other in our pursuit of self-knowledge and being our best selves.
Yeah, that's good. So then it's not only an inward looking, but it's a very social activity as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, and it starts inward and then it becomes social, right? And that's part of, the Freethinker Institute has what I call the 5 intentions. The first is personal development. The second is transparency and open-mindedness, which means being transparent about who we are and having an open mind towards ideas that will help us be our best selves, and combating that confirmation bias, which is the enemy of all of us, which is the desire to think that we already know all the answers. We don't know all the answers. We know a lot of answers, and it's okay to be comfortable with the ones that we are really solid on, but we should always have an open mind towards new things that are going to teach us more about ourselves and others. And that open-mindedness is also about getting to know others, which was about building deep relationships with other people. So all near and dear to what I want to do. And then, the third is about critical thinking skills. And then the fourth is about increasing happiness, decreasing harm. And then the fifth is about an eagerness to give and receive love. So, which I think is the ultimate culmination of having done the other 4. Then you're ready to do that. So,
yeah, I like that. Thank you. Thanks.
You're welcome. So financial goals, we're going to have a separate session on this, like I said, to talk about financial goals through smart savings and investment. Just to give a sneak preview, we're going to talk about how you can start with a $15 an hour job after graduating college, get 5% salary increases per year, and retire as a millionaire, where your investment income is equal to your retiring salary, only you're no longer working. You're making purely investment income, and you're making just as much money as you did when you work, and you're retiring at age 65, not age 70 or 75. You're retiring at age 65. And you also have enough money set aside to take nice vacations, invest in real estate, and et cetera. So that's going to be coming in probably 2 weeks is when I'm going to talk about that one. So I'm just going to give a sneak preview about what's coming up. Hopefully you guys will want to come to that. I think it'll be good. I have to give a caveat at the beginning that I'm not allowed to offer investment advice. I'm just going to give friendly advice, and you guys have to decide how you want to, whether to follow it or not, and et cetera, et cetera. But we'll talk more about that in 2 weeks. So next is avoid distractions and finish quick wins immediately. So social media and email are time sinks. They will distract you from flow. They'll get you out of flow because they distract you from flow. And you want a time block when you do them. So take 2 hours a day and say, I'm going to answer email during these times. Take a half an hour a day and say, I'm going to do social media during this time. Social media is nice to stay in touch with friends, but it can be a huge time sink. And if a task is only modestly more difficult to complete than it is to write it down, then just complete it. Just get it done. And don't bother writing it down and then taking the time to write it down and then do it, which is now double the time. Better to just get it done. And then if you can't do it now and you're regularly reminding yourselves of other things you need to do in your head, and like, you guys know this, right? I'm not the only person that's done this. Like, I'm constantly reminding myself and polling in my head. Polling is like repeatedly bringing up in your head, oh, I have to remember to do this. Oh, I have to remember to do that. Don't do that. Write it down in your goal sheet or time block it, and set an alarm when your next time block comes up so that you'll remember to switch to the next task. And set an alarm on your phone, and turn off notifications when it's not urgent so that people won't be able to interrupt you, because if you get interrupted, that will disrupt your flow.
Garrett, I had a question.
Please go ahead.
For flow, for something to have flow, there are certain criteria that it has to follow, if I remember correctly when I last read about it. So it has to be somewhat challenging, but not too challenging. It is also something that you must enjoy. And I don't know if I'm right about this, but I believe it said that it must be something that you should enjoy. Now, most of us will have jobs that most people don't really enjoy. And it kind of sometimes it can get tedious, or sometimes it's not challenging enough. That's the nature of most jobs, to be honest. Is it like even rationalistically possible to be in a flow for your, the kind of stuff that you're doing? I mean, for example, let's say you're a programmer. Now, to be a programmer and be in flow while you're programming, you have to enjoy programming. That's important. But if someone doesn't even enjoy programming, from just a rationalistic point of view, and he's a programmer, how can he be in that state of flow?
So I think that's I'm sure that you read that in a book, and I'm sure that that person has a book published, and I don't yet, but I am working on a book. And I'm going to disagree with them, quite frankly. I think you can get in a state of flow, even on stuff that you don't love, even on stuff that's very difficult and very easy. You can still be in a state of flow. And I can tell you from experience, because I've done it. I will regularly do during the day tasks that are monotonous and boring, which are my most hated tasks, but I just get them done so quickly that it's like one after another, they're done. I know they have to be done. And I know that they're leading towards this life goal that I'm super motivated to accomplish. So I don't mind the fact that I have to do something boring and tedious, even if it's a little bit repetitive, as long as it's helping me achieve this longer term goal that has a positive benefit. And now I'm also going to talk about overcoming procrastination, which is why I went to this slide, because it's relevant to what you're saying. Is there are a lot of things that people use to procrastinate, and a lot of reasons that people procrastinate. And basically this is the solution to those, the most common reasons for procrastinating. Again, these are from a book that I read, is that the goals could be, so hopefully that makes sense. And I know it sounds, I know it disagrees with probably whatever book you read, but I will also say, I've had times where I was working on really challenging stuff. I was building an artificial intelligence algorithm to maximize click-through rates in the ad tech field, right? But I loved it. I was in a state of flow. I went into the back room. I told everybody, don't disturb me until I come out of this room. And the office knew not to disturb me. I sat in the back room for like 5 hours continuously. And I came up with an artificial intelligence algorithm that made redundant the last 3 years worth of work that happened before I joined that company. So it was really hard, but I was in a state of flow. And because I was in a state of flow, I was operating at like 110% capacity. And I did really good work. Now, like I said, I've had monotonous and boring stuff where I was in a state of flow. I've had really challenging work where I was in a state of flow. So I can speak from experience that you absolutely can achieve a state of flow with very easy and very difficult tasks. You need the right level of motivation, and you don't even have to like the tasks. You just have to like what you're going to accomplish by achieving the tasks. If the truth is you're not accomplishing something of value by doing those tasks, then you have to ask yourself whether or not you even need to do the tasks. Now, if making your boss happy is what you're accomplishing, that is a valuable thing to do in a normal corporate position. And so you have a good purpose to it. Be motivated by the fact that this is going to make your boss happy. Get that easy work done. And I think if you follow these steps and you time block it and you be as efficient with your time as possible, you'll find you can achieve a state of flow, even with stuff that you don't enjoy doing.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I get what you're saying about that. The coding part, the actual challenging part, and the satisfaction comes, especially you begin with not knowing where you are going. That's extremely tense kind of feeling. You had no idea where you're going to end up. But once you're done, once you have everything in your mind and it's come out on a piece of screen and it's code that is working, it's an extremely satisfying feeling. I understand that. And when you finish a project like that, I get it. But then there are certain aspects of, coding itself, debugging and all that you really, really don't enjoy. And reading other people's code that you don't even understand where they began. Their writing style is very bad. They don't explain stuff. I'm
in a particularly good situation because my background is computer science and I did a lot of programming and I run a development team, to give you a little bit more advice, which is, when you're stuck in one of those areas of development, and I think this is actually general advice for anyone and anything, is be willing to ask for help. And the reason is because if you're stuck and you're spinning your wheels and you're starting to find yourself being frustrated, and write that down in your Stoic journal at the end of the day. And what I would argue is the lesson learned is you need to ask for help a little bit earlier before you get frustrated and stuck. When you start to spin your wheels, ask for help. And I have a saying, which is, if we don't help each other, who's going to help us? And I would argue that especially development teams spend way too much time trying to solve their own problems without asking other people for help. Because I'll bet you that if you ask one of your colleagues for help, they'll get you unstuck within 10 or 15 minutes. And I think that's true about all of us. That's why a lot of people have corporate coaches and personal coaches and life coaches. And I do corporate coaching and I do life coaching. And I get people unstuck in 15 minutes on stuff that they were stuck with for days or months or even sometimes years. They have problems that they get stuck on and they just didn't ask for help. And so just asking for help and knowing who to ask for help and asking someone who's capable of helping you will get you into that state of flow, and knowing to ask for it before you get frustrated and learning to have more resilience to not get frustrated longer. But more importantly is asking for help earlier so you don't get frustrated. Does that make sense?
Yep. Thanks, Garrett.
You're welcome. So let's talk a little bit about procrastination. The main reasons people get into procrastination is the thing they're trying to do is unstructured, ambiguous, or lacking in personal meaning. Now, if any one of these things is the case, I recommend going back to SMART goals. Make sure that those goals are SMART goals and that they're aligned with your life goals. If they're not aligned with your life goals, if they're not SMART goals, make them SMART goals. If they're not aligned with your life goals, ask if you need to do it. If you don't, skip it. If you do need to do it, then ask whether or not it falls into one of the following areas, which is what we just talked about: boring, difficult, or lacking in intrinsic rewards, or any combination of the three. There's a cool life hack that I learned about in a book, which is reward yourself for completing these tasks. And what that means is, if I have to do this really boring assignment, I'm going to treat myself to a nice dinner, right? And I'm going to say, look, when I finish that really boring assignment, I'm going to have a nice dinner. And so by doing that, you motivate yourself and you give yourself a short-term motivator that outweighs the thing that's causing the procrastination. And by simply rewarding yourself for it, you can mentally overcome the procrastination. So I thought that was a really cool life hack. It does seem to work quite well. I just started doing it recently. It's not a common problem for me that I have that problem, but I think I've kind of naturally done that for a while, to be honest, but I didn't hear it explicitly stated. And so it wasn't in my pitch until recently when I read that book. Any questions about procrastination? All right, so a little bit of guidance for your goals and motivation. So this is where I knew I was going to come back to this. Daily goals should always be things that are in your control. So this is another little piece of Stoic practical wisdom, is be motivated by your goals, but don't be disappointed if you don't achieve them. This is something that I learned from a Buddhist monk when I was talking to him about non-attachment. And I always had this misunderstanding since I was young about what non-attachment meant. And what I learned from talking to the monk is non-attachment doesn't mean don't have desires, don't have goals. What it means is don't be disappointed if you don't achieve your goals. And so be motivated by your goals, be excited about them. If you don't achieve your SMART goal on the date that you said you were going to achieve it, don't be disappointed. Just set a new date and work your hardest at achieving that new date, and acknowledge the reasons for missing the date and learn from those reasons. But don't be disappointed. Disappointment doesn't help you. The only thing you should do is learn from the miss. That will help you. And disappointment, I think, is sort of ingrained in us psychologically so that we will learn from the miss. But what I would tell you is I've kind of conditioned myself to learn from my misses without the disappointment. And if you skip the disappointment, you will be much happier in life. If you simply learn not to be disappointed at anything that happens, that is the secret to happiness. And you will literally be happy almost all the time. And you'll be happy all the time that you can avoid disappointment, but sometimes you won't be able to avoid it. It'll still come up unless you achieve nirvana, which is the goal of Buddhism. or you become the stoic sage, which no one has ever become in the history of the world. And really by only focusing your happiness on what's in your control and not being disappointed when you miss your goals, you'll be motivated for the next goal and just set the next goal to the next time. So how do I enter a state of flow? First of all, let's review what we've done. We've created one very clear goal because we've time blocked that goal, or it's the highest on our list of daily goals. We've removed all distractions except those that require your urgent attention. Your significant other or your boss should be able to get hold of you and interrupt your state of flow. That's just how it is. And you set an alarm for your next time block, because when you're in a state of flow, you're going to lose track of time. I guarantee it. Once you're in a state of flow, and you'll know you're in a state of flow because you lost track of time, and your alarm's going to go off and you're going to be like, where did that time go? I was just having fun working. And that's the situation you want to be in. I'm in that state most of my day. I'm very happy to say it's definitely taken a lot of work to get there, but it is achievable. And now you focus on doing your best work on the one thing that you need to focus on. And you're motivated by your long-term goals, but you're focusing on, basically achieving your short-term goals, because you know your short-term goals are going to help you achieve at your long-term goals. That combination of things should get you into a state of flow, because you have a singular focus. You're not going to be switching topics constantly. If you are, you're going to write those down. You're going to time block them. You're going to empty them from your mind and keep your mind focused. The one thing that I don't think is in this pitch that I thought might make sense is if you have mental chatter, and this is a common thing, like it doesn't happen as much to me, which is probably why it's not in the pitch. But if you have mental chatter where you just have like distracting thoughts arising and like you can't stay focused on one topic, try meditating. Like meditating is a great way to, like, really the idea of meditation is to clear your mind. And if you clear your mind and get to a point where your mind is clear and you're focused on just one topic and you're motivated on your long-term goal and you're really working hard, your best to get that one task done. And then when you finish that task, you know what your next most important task is. And then you go to finish that task, and then you go to finish that task, and you're doing it all in priority order, where your daily goals are from highest priority to lowest priority. You'll be in a state of flow. You'll find you're going to be knocking your goals out left and right, and you're going to have so much more progress towards your life goals. So that is the final slide of the pitch. And so really now I want to ask for additional questions. Any and all questions are welcome. If I didn't answer the question about how to stay motivated throughout that pitch, I think it was Helena that asked it. Did I answer your question, or do you still?
Yes, I think I found the answer when
Great.
you mentioned setting up habits. And I think if you don't feel like it, but if you set up to do as a habit, then you see that you can, step forward and then in that way motivate yourself, because you see you can achieve little steps at a time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the habits will help you achieve good habits. And let me just, so what I'll do is I'm going to pull up, while we're talking, I'm going to pull up, someone asked about the YouTube. I think it stopped screen sharing, but that's okay. I'm going to pull up the YouTube channel so that I can send everyone to, oh, actually it's on the Freethinker Institute. I think it's, I'm going to pull up the YouTube channel so that I can post that to the chat so that people can access the video later. And I also will be posting the presentation to the Discord group so that people have this as like a guideline that you can walk through. It really is intended to be in sort of chronological order that you need to go through in order to achieve that state of flow from beginning to end. So I tried to put it in the right order of things. What other questions do people have? And then the other thing that I wanted to talk about is about how would you apply this to your daily life, which I want to try to end these sessions with talking about how I can apply this to our daily life. Does everybody see how they can apply this to their daily life? This was a very practical application type of discussion. So I welcome feedback on, if people didn't see how to apply it, let me know, but I'm curious if it was clear.
Hi, Garrett. May I ask a question?
Yeah, please.
Thank you for your presentation. I'm very, very good. I have a question. I know what is like to be on the flow because I call that also to be in the zone.
Yep.
And that happened to me, where I'm writing 5 hours go and I don't even realize I'm enjoying, and I used to be in that zone, but I don't know what happened. Like, I'm trying to write a novel and I wrote before and it's like, I don't get to that, to the zone, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I can think on the goals in the future. I can schedule, goals today, but it's like, it's a torture just to sit down myself and do it. It's like, I don't know, that didn't happen before. I'm like 2 years or 3, like I have a lot of things written, but I just cannot put it together. And I know what is to be in the zone because I have been before, like I do not know, but, and it seemed like, yeah, I want to achieve goals and everything, but it seems like this writing of the novel, it seemed like is becoming like a headache every day because I don't do it. You understand? So I don't know how to go about it.
I do. So I have a suggestion, basically it's similar to, it's like a riff on what I taught today, which is it's about breaking goals into smaller goals. And so write down, what I would recommend is write down your goal for you're writing a novel, you said?
Yes.
Is it
writing a novel?
fiction novel?
Yeah, fiction. Yeah, fiction and fiction and what is it? And reality is a mixture.
Got it. So so what I would recommend, and I don't think it matters, but I was just curious, but I think the same advice would be helpful. I hope it'll be helpful. What I would recommend is create like an outline of what you want to write first to sort of structure your thoughts and sort of inspire you towards like the outline of what you want to accomplish and what you want to communicate. And then like what I would guess, and you can tell me if this resonates or not, but my guess is, and this is how it is when I write, is I start with an outline, and by outlining what I want to accomplish before I write the writing, it allows me to like structure my thoughts and get all my ideas on paper in a very succinct way. And if you sort of brainstorm and get into the creative flow of things, which is the structuring of your writing, first start with the structuring. And for me, I like to do that in an outline format, which is like, I do bullet number format and, break it down and like, do subsections of each form of each bullet number into sub bullets. And in doing that, I kind of get my creative thinking done in one shot. And then I can write the prose in a second phase where now I have my outline and I have all my thoughts structured. And now it's really just execution where you write down your prose. And then, you've done your deep thinking already. And now it's a matter of just, formulating it in a beautiful way, which I'm sure you're much better at than I am. I'm a very I'm more of like a very down to like straight, like matter of factly kind of writer. I can be a little bit dry. I try to be very clear and concise, but I'm not good at prose. It's not my strength. But I'm sure if you're a writer, you're much better at that, and that part will probably come naturally. Does that resonate? Does that sound like it might be helpful?
Yeah, I mean, I thought about that, and like an index with everything in, but I mean, I have two theories about that. One, that is one that I may try more to structure more everything, but the other one that I had, and also is like you have to flow with a creative mind that you have. So sometimes I find myself just writing, and I didn't really outline what I wanted to write. It just coming together like with a creative flow. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
and that's why I say
think,
like separating out the creative flow from the writing. I think what can happen, and you can tell me if this doesn't resonate, but what can happen is we get lost in the execution of prose, and the ideas get lost, and so we're focused on the prose, and then we lose the creative flow. And so if you concentrate on one at a time, first the creative flow and getting the structure down, and then focus on the prose execution, you're sort of separating out the functions so you can do each one really well, one at a time.
Okay, yeah, it makes sense. I'm going to try. Thank you, Garrett.
Let me know how it goes. I would love to hear if that doesn't solve your problem. Like I said, I do coaching. I'm happy to chat with you. I'm happy to chat with you. If that doesn't help, I would love to try to help.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Daniel, go ahead.
Yeah, I appreciate especially the part about making an outline, because sometimes when we get locked up, and I'm a writer too, we need to just look at what we're doing from a different perspective, and an outline might help us where we can kind of get a stand back and set a strategy and kind of outline what we want to do, where we want to go, where we're coming from. And you might find that there's a flaw in your logic and a flaw in what you want to do when you do the outline. Other things that I do, and this might not pertain to you, is I take a walk. Sometimes I have to leave something behind for a few days and just change my perspective entirely. And then maybe I can return to it. And then if I return to it, I might think, oh my gosh, this is a piece of garbage. This is really flawed. And there might be some little element in what you're writing that but you can't articulate, you can't really get your hand on, something that's flawed, that's getting in the way. And maybe that's something you just have to see by making an outline or getting some perspective.
Yeah, that's a great point, Daniel. And I'll say, like, I've learned as much from, like, I've learned while I'm writing about the topics that I'm writing about, because writing down my ideas forces me to think in a very structural way. And I try to and so just writing down that outline of pure ideas, helps find those flaws more easily, because I try to, write a logical argument, and doing that sort of flushes out the weaknesses. And so it really strengthens the writing, I think, to start in that outline format. And I've done that since college. All my college essays, I started in outline format.
Yeah, and I think that it makes sense, like flow, to have the flow in the structure, in the outline. So you just write a point or whatever, and you think about it, and then you let your flow go. But I guess that is more efficient.
Exactly. You create the flow. You create the flow of the writing in the outline, and then you create the beauty in the prose, by putting meat on the bones. The bones is the outline, and the meat on the bones is the prose.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Great. What other questions or feedback do people have?
Another technique that I may add, this is what I learned from one of my professors while I was in college. It's just like, this was in a philosophy class, basically. So this happens with a lot of perfectionists, it's just like you want to get it right the first time, even in writing. So one technique was to not even think about anything and just start writing, with the assumption that whatever you're writing is going to be edited, and it's meant to be bad. It's meant to be bad, and just continue writing. And once you put the first few sentences, the first paragraph is done, you see the first paragraph, the first few sentences are the most difficult ones. There's the starting friction. But once it gets rolling, it usually starts flowing out on its own. And then obviously when you're in that flow state itself, you're realizing that you have all this bunch of information in your head, but you want to structure it in a certain place, and it's not going at the right, one thought needs to come before the other. It's a very sequential and logical process if you want to do good writing. So one thing, and for that reason, writing down everything first, the technique that you were talking about, that helps. Another one is, what I'm saying is, just write it. Whatever comes out, and it's going to be nonsense. Accept that it's going to be nonsense, and then come back to it later on and edit it. So that was another technique that I learned from one of my professors back at school.
Cool.
Right. And can I say something about that?
Yeah.
That's very, very interesting, because like this about just write and don't think too much. I think that one of the things is I'm too critical of myself, So I write something and I say, oh, well, I'm not saying anything. This is not good and everything. I criticize myself too much. I want to make it perfect. And sometimes when I go back to the writing, like, I don't know, maybe in 1 month, I say, oh my God, that's unbelievable what I wrote. I mean, why do I do that to myself, to put me down like that? I mean, I have something to say that is unique. What I'm aborting my writing process just to putting myself down. So in that sense, not to be too perfectionist, you have a point, I guess, because I'm trying to think that maybe it's also one of my issues. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No.
And that comes back to like what we talked about sort of self-worth, and judging your self-worth is, if you're trying your best to do the right thing, which is trying your best to write your best writing, it's okay to like question, like, am I expressing this the best way that I can? But like, you don't want to be harshly criticizing yourself in a way that silences your own voice, right?
Right.
You want to be unleashing your creative potential. And it's not to say never criticize yourself at all, but if you find yourself criticizing yourself so much that you're preventing yourself from doing your best work, then you're actually doing yourself harm. And really, you'd be better off by just expressing yourself. And I think that's where I didn't catch his name's technique of just writing it and letting it come out and letting it flow is good. And then find yourself, and then you can always revise it later. And if you read it again the next day and it's not good, then you edit it. It's fine, right? But do your best to like get your thoughts on paper, and in the best way you can, and spend the criticism in the editorial process. I think that it's more productive that way anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Sure. But it's common, like, I hear you, like, it's common to like have that inner critic always be on your shoulder and criticizing. So, and there's a level of like, being open to feedback and your own feedback on yourself that is good and healthy. But when it becomes counterproductive and it's preventing you from doing your best work, it's unhealthy. When it's helping you, make your best, create your best work by bringing yourself to a higher level, then it's productive. And you just have to decide for yourself which one is going on.
Right, exactly. Thank you, Garrett.
You're welcome. What other thoughts or questions do people have? Any other reflections?
Hi.
Go ahead.
Hi, I have one question. I am programmer, and I have some short-term and medium-term professional goal. And for that, I need to learn some technology which I already know in deeply. Also need to learn new technology, and also need to work my English communication, all these things. So for that, all these things, our daily time will be very busy, right? Our daily schedule will be very busy. So to catch up with the future goal, and to make future goal or future life enjoyable, we are just making very much stress on current our time. So how we can, solve this?
So I think what you're saying is that you
one-
have, go ahead.
Oh, so sorry. I have one second question. Can you suggest one good book for philosophy? I'm sure. You will give very good suggestion for that.
So, so let me start with the first question. I think what you're saying is that you have ambitious goals and you have to accomplish a lot, and you're having trouble fitting it all into the time that you have. Is that correct?
Yes, and I want to add one thing. Actually, for all this, I purchased some course. A Udemy course and plural side course. Now we feel like, okay, there are many more work left, right? So we feel like, okay, we are very busy. Yeah, I purchased some Udemy course and plural. So schedule is very busy. Other than our job and whatever work we do, we need to do as an extra, right? And I already purchased all these things, so we feel like very busy. So which all are required for future goal. So how we can balance all these things?
So that's where I would come back to the eliminating things that are not serving one of those four things that we talked about. Let me see if I can go back to the slide. I went too far back. But basically, if the goal is not, my computer's running really slow. If the thing that you're focusing your time on is not, here we go. If it's not about maintaining physical and mental health, if it's not about maintaining financial independence, which is keeping your job, if it's not about maintaining positive, healthy relationships, and it's not helping you achieve your life's goals, cut those things out of your life, because those things are wasting your time when you could be spending your time on more important things. And I sort of alluded to the fact that something that might make me unpopular, but I literally don't watch any TV because I don't find TV to be a good use of my time. Now, I get that some people, like, that's how they relax, and like, that's fine. If that's how you want to spend your time, like, it's fine. And everyone but me apparently needs time to like relax. I need time to relax too. I just do it differently. Chatting philosophy is relaxing to me. So that's how I relax. But, like, I would just take a critical look at how you spend your time. And what you can do actually is do what's called a time audit. I don't know that it's called a time audit. I just am making that term up. So, but do a time audit of what you spend your time on, and literally retroactively time block what you do in a day, and write down what you spent your time on every hour. What did you spend your last hour on? And write down in a day what you spend your time on, and then look back at that day and say, was this, what were these things about maintaining physical and mental health? Was it about financial independence? Was it about maintaining positive, healthy relationships? And was it about achieving my life's goals? And anything you did during your day that you did a time audit on, like, look at, like, can I remove those things from my life and just not do those going forward? And if you can remove those things from your life, you'll find that you spend more of your time focused on the things that will make you and those that you influence happier. Does that make sense, Bhavesh?
Yes, yeah.
So
And
I can't make an extra 2 hours in the day appear for you, as much as I would like to do that. If I could have figured that one out, I would have already done it. But this is I think the next best thing.
yes, yeah. And my second question is, what one book you can suggest for reading for philosophy?
So, like, it depends on what you're looking for. If you want like a sort of easy to read but fun story, you can read Sophie's World, which is like an overview of a lot of philosophies, and gets you kind of a very like training wheels version intro. I read it when I was pretty young. If you want like a more serious but still like good overview of philosophy, I have one, I think it's called 500 Most Famous Works of Philosophy. And that one's really good. And it goes through like the 500 most famous works of philosophy, and like it summarizes them. And personally, I like reading summaries of philosophy more than the original material, because I find a lot of philosophers are, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt that when they were working through those ideas, they were very innovative and new. And so in that they were writing such innovative and new ideas, they didn't always clearly express those ideas in their writing. And so when you read the original philosophy, it often requires being in an academic setting where you have someone to help you interpret them, or a meetup setting. Like I've been to meetups where we talked about philosophy, although I will say the Stoics tend to be a lot more easy to understand. And so I would say if you read the Stoics, like Epictetus and some of the Greeks, they have some really interesting stuff. And I would argue more progress was made during the ancient Greco-Roman times than, and this is going to be controversial, but then I would say in the last 200 years of philosophy, it's one of those areas where the ancients, I feel like, made more progress than the modern world.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. I hope that's helpful.
Yes, yeah, indeed.
What other questions do people have or thoughts? And we're right at 1:30 when no one has any questions. So that must start. Go ahead. Yeah,
just
go ahead.
a quick one. In terms of some of the things you covered, do you see Carl Jung fitting in? I do for a lot of these kinds of things. And so I just thought I'd mention, him.
So in what context are you referring?
Getting to know yourself, being willing to spend time trying to communicate with your unconscious, recognizing the signs of it and the benefits of it, yes, in order to be a fuller, more complete person.
Yes, so thank you for providing the context. So I do absolutely, I really like a lot of Jung's work, and Myers-Briggs, I think, came out of him, and I'm a big fan of Myers-Briggs. In spite of PhDs in psychology not liking it. I talked with a PhD in psychology who likes Myers-Briggs about why that is, and he said, oh, it's because PhDs in philosophy didn't invent Myers-Briggs, and so they don't like it. They invented the big five, and so they like that instead. And I found that to be really insightful because I never really understood why they didn't like it, but I think he hit the nail on the head. And, corporate America teaches Myers-Briggs, and I find it very useful in sort of understanding oneself and how one's natural inclinations to interact with other people and process the world. And I think a lot of my writing is about that. And in fact, as we go on and have more of these sessions, I have like a theory of intelligences, which I'll probably introduce in the next couple of months, which is a little more detailed than Howard Gardner's theory of intelligences. And I've already introduced what I call the blueprint for the spirit, which is my personal profile, which is the one that I did 2 weeks ago. I think you'd like that. Or if you email me, I'll email you that spreadsheet. But I think that a large part of happiness is understanding who we are and living an authentic life. And that doesn't mean like, and one of the things that we talked about in the session a couple, two sessions ago, I think it was about how a lot of people will, when someone suggests a way that they can improve themselves, will say, don't try to change me, right? As a resist, an attempt to resist someone influencing them. And if someone's trying to change the core of who you are, I agree that's an appropriate response. But if someone's trying to say, here's a way you could be an even better person and be the best version of yourself, we should embrace that feedback and be open to it. And that's part of what we talked about, is only by knowing ourselves and knowing what's core to us can we know what's not core to us. And when someone makes a recommendation about something that's not core to us that will help us be a better version of ourselves, we should really be appreciative of that person and thanking them for the feedback rather than be upset at them for the feedback, which is most people's natural gut reaction. So I do very much I think act and try to teach in the spirit of Jung, which is to get to know ourselves better, and to know what's core to who we are. I try to help people define what's core to who they are so that they can, be at peace with who they are and be able to communicate who they are to other people in a really authentic way. And then from there, work hard at being the best version of themselves. And that's really what the Freethinker Institute is all about, is helping everyone understand who they are at their core, be transparent with other people about who that is. And I will tell you, I've read a lot of people's personal profiles because I do this for work as well with my company. And people have very beautiful sort of inner selves. Like, I have yet to see someone where I got to know them, their core self, and I really disliked it. Never happened. Like, people's core selves are really beautiful. What happens is, and the reason that I think people run into interpersonal conflict is because of the 90% of conflict being from misunderstandings. And usually people are not clearly communicating their core self, or not clearly articulating their core self, or not clearly communicating between two people. And that miscommunication causes conflict. And I think that ultimately we're all really, generally aligned in our goals and our objectives. And I think that there are people trying to divide us. And that's what I would say this political situation that we're in right now in this country is that there are people trying to divide us. And I'd like us to be united in the Freethinker Institute, from all political backgrounds, all religious backgrounds, all racial backgrounds, every background, to be united around just being polite with each other and being authentic and helping us be our best selves.
Yes, I agree. I think that I viewed it, drive it kind of independently, that incomplete communication is, for me, the source of all kinds of anxieties and self-doubts and frustrations. And that I've found that if I can regard it, that incomplete doesn't mean never completed. It means just you interrupted, but that you can follow the chain. And that's a very natural process from the beginning of development and breastfeeding and other kinds of things, where things have to be gradually, pulled together.
Yep.
Yeah. May I ask, where shall I send an email to you? I don't have your.
Let me write it in the chat. I put it on the last slide, and it was supposed to be up the whole time, but so that's my email, garrett@freethinkerinstitute.org. So you can email me there. GarrettLang@gmail.com works too, but Garrett@freethinkerinstitute.org is my official Freethinker email. Yeah.
Okay. Very, very good. Yeah. Thanks. I appreciate it. I'll get in touch with you.
Cool. Please do. Yeah, I'd love to send you the personal profile, and I'd love to see yours, especially because of your great questions. If you're open to sharing once you fill it out.
I am. Yeah. You
Cool.
bet.
Cool. So any other questions? I know we're at 1:37, so we're a little bit over, but want to let people ask any other questions that they may have if they want to.
I just want to say thank you very much for tonight. I found it very interesting. I think you're a great communicator, and I've learned lots. Thank you very much.
It's too kind of you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Any other questions or final thoughts? Was this useful for everybody? I heard it was useful for you, Helena, and I'm really glad for that. Anyone else find it useful?
Yes, very useful. Thank you.
Great. De nada. ¿Hablas español, no, María?
Sí, sí.
Me alegro.
¿Y tú también?
Yo intento, por lo menos.
Ah, muy bien, muy bien.
Sorry, I don't mean to, but like whenever I hear a Spanish speaker, I love the language. I think it's such a beautiful language. I like it more than English, to be honest. So
Yeah, I was born in Spain.
Oh, no me digas.
Barcelona, 5 hours south, Alicante.
I lived in Vigo for a year as an exchange student. That's where I learned Spanish. So
Oh my God,
we should reach
Vigo.
out. We should do a Spanish speaking wine dinner sometime.
Yes, yes, of
If you're up
course.
for that.
Yes, I would love it.
Cool. Reach out to me.
Okay.
Cool. Well, thank you all for joining. I really appreciate your attention, and hope everybody has a great rest of their weekend. And thanks everyone for joining us. And if you have any feedback, feel free to email it to me. Feedback is always welcome. We want to make these sessions as useful as possible for everyone. If you have topics you want to talk about, and I will be sending a survey out before too long about what topics people are interested in. I also have a list that I think are really helpful. And like I said, I'm kind of going in a specific order that I think makes sense. But once we finish that order of things, then we're going to go to like, group requests. So keep an eye out for that survey, and we would love your feedback.
Perfect.
All right. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Bye.
Okay, thanks.